We are all 100% focused right now on trying to get the next milestone done, which is the milestone that includes Guild versus Guild, the Dregs, and a whole bunch of strategy game stuff. There's actually a lot of this is probably our most impactful milestone we've ever done. It is huge, and I want all eyeballs on that thing. I want everybody working on it. What that means is that the live game service that we're running, even though it's still in a testing phase, right? We treat it like it's a live service. We're going to treat it a little bit less like a live service. We're going to be doing less iterations and updates to it because I want to spend those internal cycles worried about the next milestone.
Right.
This is our last major milestone that we're going to be doing before we move into bug fixing and polish and balance. And then when that's done, we're going to launch. So it's a hugely impactful, incredibly important milestone for us. It has some incredibly cool stuff in it. We had an interview that was coming out this morning that actually covers some of that in detail. I was going to hold off talking about it until that interview comes out, but it literally may come out while we're sitting here chatting. So if it does, then I'll start talking about it a little bit more. So I'll punt some of that into the future of this very live stream, and we'll talk about it in a bit. So
that sounds great.
Other stuff to talk about before we start.
Yes.
There's a /campaigns subpage on crowfall.com now, right? That gives you previews of the upcoming new cool campaigns. So that's pretty cool.
I'm assuming yes, since everyone's nodding their head.
Yeah. So go to crowfall.com/campaigns, and it now will actually tell you about the stuff that's coming, which is really cool. So the timing then of the next version 1.10 and the stuff that's in it, we're going to talk about that some today. I'm waiting for a go-ahead, though, that I don't stomp on the announcement that's coming out through the interview. All right. Let's start with the melee range one, because that's something from last time that I think wasn't clear, so we want to clear it up now.
How is it not clear? So
we probably told them the wrong thing. That's probably how it wasn't clear. So let's clear it up.
So back in the days of yore, it was set to 6 meters, which sounds like a short distance. But I actually showed it to Debbie Sue last night, and she's like, "That's huge," because when you put the characters 6 meters apart, you're like, "That's huge."
Well, sizing in an MMO just does, because your third-person camera doesn't relate to sizing in the real world.
Because when you look at it over the shoulder, you don't realize how far it is. But I took the camera to the side and I said, "Look at how far that is."
Yeah.
So that was the old time.
Yep.
So then when we got the new client controller, we're like, okay, now that everything's much snappier, the networking is much quicker, let's have that, because we like to do that in design, right? So we took it down to 3. And that's what you guys are playing right now on live in 5.100 is 3. And it's a little too short.
Yeah, which is funny, because again, it's 18 feet or thereabouts, right?
3 is 9.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
It used to be 18.
It was 18. So, okay, so it's down to 9.
Now it's down to 9. And then
still, 9 feet is, you would think, a pretty big melee range. Like, that seems like a long
That's the
sword.
Distance across this room.
Right, for sure.
So
it got a little too short, though, in terms of the way it actually feels.
Right.
Not whether it seems like it should be realistic or not, but in terms of the way it actually feels in the game, now it feels too short. So
we're going to bump it up to 4.
We're going to bump it up to 4.
We're going to bump it to 4 and see if that's just right.
Okay.
Which, again, that is 12 feet if you had to put it in feet, which is the length of this room, which is very long.
So we'll try that, and if that still feels off, we'll continue dialing it. But there's a kind of an old and well-established design idea, which is when you're trying to hone in on the right number, you either take the number and either double it or half it, because by doing that, you can more quickly, with fewer iterations, find the actual number that you're looking for.
Right. Rubio asked, when is this bump to 4? Is it on live now?
No. It's in the 5.110 build.
Yeah.
So we've been playing with it for a couple weeks now.
Right.
But it is not on live.
Yep.
As Todd said, we're slowing down on live so we can actually get the 110 milestone completed.
And out. And there's, like I said, it is packed to the brim with stuff, because we're trying to get all the things in before we can move to bug fixing and polish. So there's a lot in it. It is going to be a significant.
We've been doing stuff on. I've already forgotten a lot of the early stuff we did to it. So. Patch Notes will be your friend.
I want to talk a bit about passive training, because this is a conversation that we've had internally, and I would like to actually throw it back at you guys, because I'd like to get your thoughts. One of the things we're definitely noticing now is passive training has been up for a long time, and it's been on a multiplier for a long time.
Yep.
So I think the effective passive training now is something like 27 months or something.
Or more.
Or it's a fair chunk.
It's times 3 of every month.
Yeah, so, and I think it's been a long time since we've actually done a wipe. So I'm definitely seeing now that new players who are coming to the game are looking at that and saying, wow, that I'll never catch up to that, which literally right now with no catch-up mechanic in the game, they can't.
They're 3 years
Right?
behind.
They're 3 years behind. So is it? We know that with the next milestone that comes out, we will likely have to do a wipe anyway because enough things are going to change. Is it in our best interest, though, for the live service right now to go ahead and go do a wipe? Would that actually reinvigorate and bring some people in right now? And so I've got mixed minds about this. But since we don't have a catch-up mechanic at all, part of me thinks, yeah, we probably should go ahead and do a wipe now. It would at least allow new blood to come in. It would allow us another round of testing on the beginning of the game to see how that goes. So anyway, I'd love to get you guys to give us some thoughts and feedback on that. If we can have you, let us know on the forums, that would be great. Val, can you kind of make a note to have a place for people to give us their thoughts on that? Is would it make sense and be helpful and exciting right now to go ahead and do a passive skills wipe?
They're saying just put everybody at max.
I can't do that. So again, I'm trying to do a feature freeze right now because I don't want to be messing with live. I want everybody all focused to be on trying to get this next milestone done. I could do a skill wipe because that's simple. That's easy. I can just go in and say, wipe the skill trees. To create a new system where we put everybody at max, I don't have the capacity to do that, so I'd have to pull somebody off of a Dregs task, and I'm not going to do it. So that's not on the table. So the question is, do you want me to do a wipe or not? Not do you want some other thing that I didn't offer? Can't give you that. Sorry.
So you can't speed it up times 50.
There is a knob that we could potentially use to speed it up, but we've never tested anything above times. Have we even tried times 5?
No.
I mean, maybe, but to have somebody now go and test that and have QA put it through a cycle is time and resources that we're not doing on Dregs. So.
However, wiping is super easy.
Wiping I know we can do because we've done wiping before. It's very, very easy.
Okay, Marth, I've visited Marth's EK and it is elaborate and gorgeous. So we're specifically talking about just wiping skill trees.
Yes,
right?
passive
Not
skill
EKs.
trees, not talent trees, not EKs, just talking about a passive skill tree wipe. Curious to know your thoughts. I certainly cannot do it. That is a very, very easy answer. The thought and the reason that I ask is I've had some people say, hey, I have some guildmates who have been watching the war stories. They think it looks pretty cool, but they're not willing to jump in knowing that they're going to be 27 months of progress behind. And yeah, I get that. And I'm going to fix it. We've got some catch-up mechanics that are planned and they're coming, but I can't fix that right now. So
right. And we don't really want to invest in
and we don't want to invest in a bunch of other stuff that is distracting from us getting the Dregs done.
Okay,
that's
so
really
Blaza made the comment that you'd need to wipe items if you wiped passives because then they would have items that they're unused.
Well, they certainly would have not. They'd have items that were in the game that they could not build anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah,
right?
We don't have any specific. You can equip this in the passive skill trees.
Yeah,
that's only exists in the talent trees, and that's only with the runic weapons. I'm trying to think what he's referring to.
Okay. But there would be you would have a sudden, it'd be like a post-apocalyptic scenario, right? Where all of a sudden, all we can make is like wooden hammers and bone knives. But, there's still some guns floating around from before the nuclear war. So we would have a weird situation there. I mean, we could certainly wipe items as well. I mean, that's definitely something we could do. But the more granular we try to make it, the more we're starting to bleed into territory of that's going to blow up on our face, and we're going to have people working on it all weekend, and I don't want to do that. So if it really comes to being too complicated, then I'll just say let it ride. And if that means that we're going to have lower than normal concurrency, which we're already seeing some of, on playing right now for the next couple months, I'm okay with that. I mean, ultimately, that doesn't matter as much as getting this game done and making it great. Right. So there you go.
There you go. Yep.
So love to have your feedback. Thanks, guys. So next.
I will talk about what was the logic behind requiring wardens and brigands to take bow discipline to equip quivers.
Okay.
And the idea is that within our talent trees, you actually have 3 hard specializations for each class.
Yep, promotion classes, effectively.
Our promotion classes, and they're very different from each other, right? And making everybody the same means that everybody's the same. Right?
For sure.
Ultimately. So we like to say, hey, this guy feels like an archer. This guy feels like a melee ranger. Right? One's Aragorn, and one's more Legolas. Right? So what we do is we say, hey, this guy gets a quiver, this guy gets one-handed weapons.
Well, it's so this is interesting, right? The question is basically why can't I have all the things?
Right.
So this is one particular example, But the point is, hard choices ultimately lead to that whole replayability. I found a build that's mine. I think this build is really cool. I want to try it out. Now I'm going to try it with this different thing. If we kind of, the more we blend these things and make kind of everybody able to do everything, the less you get of that. Now, one thing that I would like us to do between now and when we launch, so this will be more of a balanced phase thing, is I'd like to go back in and make it to where I do have more control in the attributes that I can affect so that I can lean in different directions. I can make a warden, but I can lean them to be more tanky or lean them to be more damage dealing or lean them to be more healing focused or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
most of those things are handled through the discipline.
And that's mostly handled through discipline.
Right.
So I think we are overdue for a solid discipline pass. The example that I always use internally when we're discussing this is the 5th edition D&D feat system. I think it's a fantastic, really cool mechanic that they use. What I love about it is that if you don't want to deal with the complexity of it, you don't have to. You can just add to your stats, and that is an incredibly viable option. Like, that's incredibly powerful to just add to your stats. But if you want to become more tanky, you can take Heavy Armor Master, you can take Shield Master, or whatever. So I want that same kind of feeling, and I don't feel like we quite hit it with our first round of discipline polish. Some of those disciplines just need to go away.
Yep.
And there's some that I feel like are kind of glaring holes that we didn't get in that we need to get in. So I do want us to make a full discipline pass. It's just right now, again, I want Dregs more than I want that. So
right, and the nice thing is we have the tech to do discipline.
sure, that's the great news. We have the tech for all these things now. Right?
We're not trying to really stretch the content right now. We're really trying to get the features done.
Yeah.
Because we can do content at a better pace after everything is done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, that's one of the reasons.
But
we
have passive trees. We have leveling. We have classes. We have promotion classes. We have talent trees. We have all the pieces that we need now to be able to do these things. Some of them we put a system in place and we put the initial stuff in and we've kind of made little tweaks to it, but we've never gone back and holistically said, all right, let's take a look and see if this entire design is working for us from where it needs to be. I don't want to just throw it all out. Obviously, we don't have time to do that, but I think that we can make some pretty significant rifle shots that'll make, like, for example, removing Elementalist, right? We could remove that if we wanted to, and I wasn't freezing us. We could go and remove that tomorrow, but then that has a ripple effect because, all right, now we've got a problem with ballistas again. So there are some of those things that I would actually like to do and just haven't done because an individual rifle shot might cause more problems than it fixes. But we are aware of those issues, and we do want to fix, and we want to fix them. We have an intent to fix them. We just haven't gotten to it.
Yep.
So
it's just
so Navy Styles made the point that Rangers are the only ones that have to craft ammo.
They are, in fact.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Well, again,
assassins are the only ones who have a stealth bar.
And they're the only ones who have to get toxins, right? So I mean that there's
it's a game mechanic. That's to answer the question.
Right.
Now you can say I don't like the game mechanic, but is it fair? What the hell does that mean? What is it fair? It's a mechanic. I mean, we put in the mechanic because we like it. Now, if you're saying I don't like that mechanic, okay, that's a valid argument. We can have a discussion about it, right? The quiver was one of our attempts early on when we said, hey, that mechanic is too harsh. Let's pull it back some. Let's create a quiver object that does it, that deals with that. But is it fair? I mean, that's.
I think there's also the argument of consistency and everything should be the same. Again, leads to homogenous gameplay in my mind, which is everything ends up feeling the same. Like, okay, we can put in reagents and things like that. It's a different flavor of arrow, but then everything starts to feel samey. So in many ways, it's nice to have things that are different because it gives this guy a unique flavor. Right, and that's ultimately what you're trying to do with your classes and races is make everything feel different and impactful, but still be within the same rough balance of each other. Right, I mean, if you look at the Fae, for example, they've got the zip forward twice and glide.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of crazy stuff I can do with them. I'm still wrestling with. That's so incredibly powerful compared to other races. Why would anybody play anything else?
Right. Well, that's what I want. And then again, I go back to the feats in 5th edition, which are a great example of that. Is there's so many that are good that the question, why would anybody play anything else, is because I don't want to give this thing up, and it's so great. So one of the answers to that might be, hey, if we think that's too much of a pain point, let's not just change the underlying mechanic. Let's go add a discipline that lets you specifically say, I care so much about that, I'm going to give up a different major discipline so that I don't have to worry about ammo. Okay, we could certainly do that.
We have quivers.
Right?
Quivers was the answer.
Or I could have an infinite quiver if I take this discipline, for example. We could totally do that. Do we want to? I don't know. I'm happy to look at it, but giving everybody all the things for free, I mean, if you take any given class and you ask a player who plays that class exclusively, is it okay that you don't get this, or is it? Do you feel like your class has everything? Unless that class is totally broken, everybody is going to have something about their class that they think should be better. That's kind of the way it works. That's on purpose. So.
That's a good answer. Well done.
Well, thank you, Val.
You're welcome.
So it's not a great answer. I mean, it's a unpopular answer, but it is actually the truth of game design. Is that you can't have all the things. We can't give all the things, because if we do, what you find is suddenly the game is boring. It's all
Right, no,
homogeneous.
I think that explaining the reasons behind it, that was a good answer. It was like you said, you give up something because you want something else that's
Yeah.
Okay,
So
moving
the
on.
thing that we can discuss though is how much of a detriment or a penalty to is it degrading the fun so much that, for example, no one plays that class?
Yeah, see, I
That's
don't
a
think
great
so,
indicator. If no one is playing that class, then it means we went too far. But I don't see that. The data
Yeah.
doesn't show that.
Right.
So instead, it's just I don't like that mechanic, and I get it. That happens all the time, right? Debbie Sue, can I talk about this stuff yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So the major push that we've got coming in Dregs, right? One is guild versus guild, right? Not having factions anymore. You guys all know that was coming. There's two other major areas that we're focusing on this too, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there too, like caravans and mounts. Those are normally would be big ticket items, but in this one, they're like just things we have to get done. So we got a host of that stuff. But the major things that are coming are guild versus guild stuff. And there is a thing I've talked about for a while, but never really discussed, which is alternate strategies for winning the campaign. And the last one is building advancement. So let me talk about the second, and then I'll let Blair talk about the third. I think you guys generally know what guild versus guild mechanics are like, and not forcing me to choose to be in a generic faction where anybody else with a bunch of randos, basically. So
bunch of randos.
I've had an overall goal for a while that I wanted to come up with other things that people could do to make forward progress towards trying to win the campaign that wasn't simply a question of go capture this thing and hold it. That's all we've got right now. So what that means is right now we're kind of where a lot of the other games are in terms of their battlegroundy kind of campaign areas, which is the traditional planet-sized Dark Ages style model, 3-faction tug of war. You go and you take things. Now we do have an end, which is great, and we do have seasons, which is cool. We need to double down on that. What we don't have is, if I'm a small team and I can't go take that keep, what do I do? Right? How do I actually influence the campaign? So what we've got now is a new system that is going to come online that sits on top of the campaign that I call the Divine Favor system, and it offers goals for teams to do each season to actually try and win the campaign, and those goals are broken out into 3 different parts: glory, wealth, and power. So power is mostly activities related to what we already have, which is capturing locations, getting victory points, things like that. The other 2, glory and wealth, relate to glory being do things on behalf of the gods to make them happy, and wealth being about building and crafting and creating cool things. So it's an accumulation, it's a build cycle, not necessarily a capture and destroy cycle. So we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff coming again in the future as we get closer. I don't want to completely explain it now, but the key points are alternate strategies to win with a new mechanic that sits on top of the campaign, ties into seasons, ties directly into the gods. And I tried to go through as we brainstormed what the different goals might be. We tried to come up with mechanics. Some are public, some are hidden, and some are for big teams, some are for small teams. So, for example, you might have tabletop gaming does this a lot, like Catan or Seven Wonders, games like this. I might, at the end of the game, get extra points because I had the longest road or the largest army. These are interesting mechanics, I think, that can give people things they can be working on behind the scenes. And then every season, you'll see new positioning and jockeying for position based on who went after which strategy that was available. So I think that's going to be huge. That's going to be one significant, giant, impactful piece on top of the campaigns that's going to make our game unlike really any other game that's out there. The other piece of, so that's kind of the macro level. The other piece is the micro level, and that is building advancement.
Yep. So the cities right now are very ephemeral, and they really have no meaning other than point generation.
Yeah, they're a point, and they kind of act as a respawn hub. That's kind of it. Right?
That's kind of it. There's not really much to it. You really don't care much about this. Like you have
About
no
a
attachment.
particular fort, like this fort versus that fort. Why would I own one versus
Right.
the other? Maybe proximity to something that I want to farm, but generally speaking, I don't care that much.
So
Pretty
again,
shallow.
We're leaning a lot on some of the older Shadowbane mechanics where you would have a blacksmith and it would give you some benefit.
Right.
And
Or a barracks, or an archery tower,
Right.
or whatever.
there's categories of buildings and you can only have so many, and there's some interesting choices there. And you can rank those buildings up, and as they rank up, they give better buffs.
Yep.
They offer different services, like a vendor will appear in that building who sells different things. And then the buildings get tougher so they don't get destroyed in a siege.
They can also change the behavior of the entire stronghold as well, right? So we
Right.
talked about having, there are 2 spires that can be built out of 4, and 2 of them allow you to say no fly zone, for example.
Right.
Or one of them is a no fly zone, the other is a no tunneling zone. But you can't have both, or you can't have more than 2 out of the
Right.
4. So it's forcing choices, right? Even at that micro level.
So you will feel like you are building the city and you're
Right.
making choices. And ideally, the buildings give you enough good choices that it's not like we always have to build that one.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the goal that we're trying to hit. We'll see if we can hit it or not.
And we're also trying to have choices that then benefit different cross slices of the people who might be on your team. So if I am a guild that is heavily, if my group as a whole, we tend to have a lot of healers, all right, then I'm going to want to build this building because it's more beneficial to healers. Or if our group tends to have a lot of assassins, then I definitely don't want that no-fly spire because that's going to actually hurt my team. So it's interesting choices like that where even between two different teams or people in the same group, there's going to be some consternation and debate about what's the better thing to have.
Right. And the lifeblood to all of that is the caravans and getting stuff from the POIs.
Right, which is also coming.
Right.
For sure.
So the activity is that people can always be working on building up their city, ranking up the buildings, getting better benefits, ranking up the keep structure to rank up the walls, right? Because they'll all rank up in unison based on the keep structure. Those is unique. So you'll have lots of stuff to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And ultimately what that does is the caravans, since they can be, you can kill the people who are taking the caravans. You can take their...
Or you can kill the pigs.
Or you kill the pigs. You can either deny them or you can take the stuff from them.
Yeah.
Like you can just tame them after you kill the master. That will create interesting conflict out in the world.
Yeah.
Right? And the goal, of course, is build a bigger, better city.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
And make one that's interesting.
Well, and it also adds up new strategic goals during combat as well. During a siege window, I may realize that I do not have enough people to actively take your fort, but I can go there and specifically take out your respawn statue. I can go there and specifically take out your barracks,
Right.
or I can specifically take out the thing that's generating the points. Like, so it gives us other goals, right? So again, all of this is about, we spent the last years building out a foundation, right? So we have all of these amazing pieces now that are very, very hard to get, right? Procedural world generation and characters being able to move between these worlds, and having import and export, and having different rules on the worlds, and having all the character advancement stuff. We've got all that now. What we need to do is now infuse the actual game rules on top, both kind of top down and bottom up in the campaigns, to make it much more of a deeper strategy game. And so that's what we're doing now. So that's why when I said this is a giant milestone, it is a giant milestone, and that's why I'm going to have to ask you guys for your patience when I say to get this thing done as quick as we can. We're going to be more quiet on the live service because I don't want us spending all of our cycles trying to deal with customer service issues and things like that. We have to get this game done. It has to be great, so I'm putting all of our effort into that. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Soul Reaver.
So that was a lot. I realized we
Yeah.
probably need to
Yeah.
stop.
There's
for
your
a
info
minute.
dump.
Yeah.
They were happy for the most part with what they were hearing, and I just want to say we have about 15 more minutes.
Cool.
Soul Reaver asks, we have established a change to melee range coming in 5.11. When will we see a change to the ranged combat? Their hitbox target is 6 meters wide. How can it be justified having melee in a state where they have to fight their butts off to hit where
So hold on real
range
quick. So
is
first of all, just to be
25.
clear, I have no need to justify anything. I'm going to make the best game that I can make. I'm sorry, but come on. Let's tone it back just a touch, please.
He's
There's
European.
I-
It's just a
Yeah.
different culture.
Okay. So there's no need to justify it. So would I like to look at targeting and long range targeting and tighten that up? Yes, I would. Thank you for asking. But let's back off a little bit. We don't
I
need
realize that everybody has a particular axe to grind.
Right,
And
absolutely.
And that one thing that you have that is it's a constant irritation.
Right.
Because you see it every day. I guess for us, we're looking at such a big picture thing right now.
Well, look, I've got 50,000 people yelling at me. How can you justify this decision that you made? So, all right, yes, you know what? Here's my only thing. If you ask nicely, I'm more likely to look at it. It's true. It's true because you can see now what my knee-jerk reaction is I don't have to justify anything to that guy. I don't even know who we're talking about. I don't remember who asked this question. You don't have to tell me, but nonetheless. Yes, I'd be happy to look at that. Keep it civil, please. Keep it civil. All right.
But
is there more to the question, Val, or do you not want to ask it now?
No, I'm done. I have to live with these people. I have to live with them. Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to mention again, like I said just a second ago, we've got about 10 or 15 minutes left. Do you have any questions left on your paper? Or are we just taking questions?
No, I mean, we just dumped so much information. I'd almost rather take questions about that because
Yeah.
I think that's really cool and really interesting. So if there are questions about that, then
it's
let's
also
try.
at the stage where we're building it right now.
Right, for sure.
Right,
We're in crazy town over here.
But that also means for us, we also, if a good idea pops out, then we're more likely to respond to it right now.
Right, yeah.
Then when
Once
everything's
we're
done,
committed and everything is already in place.
right? It's
For
like,
sure.
hey, I'm mixing the batter right now at this moment. So tell me if you want a little more vanilla, a little more cinnamon in there.
Yeah.
Right. So we can do that right now.
One of the things I'm super excited about with this is that this particular system, right? We have this idea of we're going to have different goals. Every season has different goals, and you get to pick which goals you want to go after. And some of the goals are geared for smaller teams. Some of the goals are actually specifically geared towards here's a catch-up mechanic goal, for example. The team that starts with that has the biggest net gain in the number of forts and keeps over the course of this season gets a bonus 3 power points. That's a really cool concept, right? Because if I'm already holding the most, I'm less likely to get that than if I'm somebody that started with none. So that might be something that my team gets together and says, ooh, hey, wait, this one's really cool. Why don't we try an angle for this? So I think it's going to be a really cool system. I think you're going to like it. But it ties also back to the gods. I tried to, as we were going through and brainstorming these, a lot of times you'll have a system where you think in your mind this is going to be really cool. And you're like, think of all the things we can do with it. We can do like this. And then you start to try and flesh out the list of or this or this or this, and there's nothing else there. So what looked like an ocean is actually just a giant puddle that's like an inch deep. There's no depth to it. This was not that. This system, I sat down and immediately said, okay, let me try and think of 12 really cool divine favor goals that a team could go for. And I got 12 of them immediately. So then I thought, all right, I'm going to see if I can blow this out, and I'll do another set of 12 and then another set of 12. And in an hour, I had more than we could use. So that's what told me the system was actually really strong. And being able to tie it back to the gods is really cool as well. Zelina is so self-centered. You get points for having more Zelina statues. Why? Because that's what she's into.
That's what she digs.
Yaga? Nope, she doesn't care about that. She wants enemy head sacrifice. Right. So I think it'll be a really cool system. It also gives us as designers a way to mix it up and get more of the activities to be more beneficial and impactful in the campaign.
And a lot of the technology stuff really excites me, which is the whole. We have systems like our adjective system, which are just words and strings and things, and we have our power system. And now engineers are giving us a way to kind of marry the two to objects in game.
Yeah, for sure.
And actually places in the game.
Yeah. So buildings, right?
Right. Your favorite example is we can put words that you guys don't see on a road
with tags, basically.
Right. We're basically tagging the road in a way that it activates a power when you step on the road.
Right.
And that power could be on the back end. You're 15% faster when you're on a road.
Or
movement.
Or your caravans could be 15%.
Or your caravans are
faster. So now that's interesting because I can go along this road to get to my town from the quarry. I get a speed boost, but everybody else knows that. So they know that I'm more likely to try and take the road, which is more likely to be ambushed. So that's the kind of stuff that we haven't been able to do that we're also getting.
Right. So if I had this technology 2 or 3 years ago when we put in things like camouflage and pathfinding, it may just be that those things would only work when you're in a forest.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
Because the
for
forest
sure.
would have a tag. Or now like swamps could put just a dot on you when you're in the swamp.
Poison gas dot. Yeah, when
Right?
you come into the swamp, you get a gas, poison gas debuff on you, and when you leave, it goes away. I think that's really cool. That kind of stuff, I think, will pay off.
Yeah, because I mean, again, we had two
play.
isolated systems,
Yeah.
and then when we build those bridges between them, all of a sudden the content possibilities are just basically to our imagination.
Yeah.
Right.
For example, yeah. I think that's going to pay off in spades for us. I think we're going to find a lot of ways that we can use that here in the next milestone.
Yep.
Okay, so the big question is, when is all of this great 511 magic coming?
All right. So can I talk about that too or not? Do you see? Is that okay? I didn't know if we were making it public or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so our goal is to push on this from now through the end of the year, and then it'll come out early next year. So is that January? Depends. Depends on the level of polish. Probably not. Is it February? Yeah, I would say it's definitely going to be February. So there you go.
And the test center will obviously be up before.
Yeah. Yeah, then we'll have, in fact, what will likely happen is as these things come online, we'll bring up the test server to test things individually and then take it back down, as opposed to waiting till the end and bringing it all up. So.
Oh, Hario, thank you so much for bringing this up. So we advertised that you were going to be talking about overall team competitive.
Oh, we did. Okay, yeah. That was a forum thread actually that I started,
So
and it was
thank you
on
for
here. And I
reminding
said I wanted to
us.
get back to it. This is kind of a longer conversation. It's kind of design philosophy, right? But this is just so as we move into guild versus guild, this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, that I'm thinking about. So I came up with this basic, simple whiteboard model to illustrate the problem that we've got, right? Which is if you think about a team, whether that team is a faction or a guild or whatever, then you can kind of look at the overall competitiveness of that team as a function of a couple different things. One is the number of players on the team, right? Mm-hmm. Then another one is the availability on the team. If I've got 100 people, but they can all only play 15 minutes a day, then that obviously has an impact versus having 10 people who can play 24/7. And then lastly is skill, just how well do those people on that team utilize that time.
Right.
And if you kind of take that is, and let's say they're all working towards some goal. If they're working towards different goals, that's going to affect that efficiency of the team. If they're all working towards the same goal, that's going to bring it up. So management of the team also comes into play here too. You can kind of take all those factors together and probably other factors I'm not thinking about as well, and like network speed or whatever, and you can kind of blob those together into what I called overall team effectiveness or competitiveness. So the challenge that we've got is that really good matches tend to come out when you, in anything, in a sport or a game or whatever, competitive games, when you have teams that have relatively close levels of overall team competitiveness, right? If you took you remember the old Olympics, they had the dream team? Well,
Yes.
They took all the
Yes.
NBA stars and stuck them on, they just crushed everybody else in the world. So that's a problem, right? If you had an NFL team take on a Tiny Tots football team, that's an issue because they're not equal in overall team competitiveness.
That's your teenager and the Easter egg example that you like to give with where they put them in the brackets.
Right. Yeah.
And if you put the teenagers out there with
In the Easter egg hunt, if you let the teens go with all the toddlers, it doesn't go well for the toddlers. So that's a general problem that we're trying to solve. So the more we make a war simulators, true like war that's not a thing. Like nobody is like, hey, wait a second, we've got too many people in our army. We're going to hold some back. We want to make sure that, no, they just crush you. They just roll over and crush you. So wars aren't fun inherently for the people that lose the war. They're generally not fun for people overall, but
Right.
for the people who lose, they're especially not fun. So this is a challenge that we have because we're trying to make a throne war simulator where we want to have people fighting on behalf of the gods in a big war of the gods. So how do we deal with this? And I think that this is a longer term thing, right? I thought about it some in terms of the current dregs, because I'm not controlling the factors necessarily that go into that. If I'm right and those are some of the factors, they may not be all of them, but they're pretty big ones. I'm not controlling team size. I certainly am not controlling availability, meaning how often do those team members play every day, and I have no real control over player skill.
Right.
So how do I make sure that we don't have NFL teams going up against junior high football teams? So that's the kind of stuff I'm puzzling out. Tournaments are a great way to do it. Is you You come in. I can lock team size to some degree, so that's one that I could have some control over. I've even talked about having availability windows, like let's have a campaign that comes up that only runs every night from 7 to 10 p.m. in a certain time zone. That's a way for me to bracket in the availability.
Right.
The last one is kind of that skill level and tournaments that you have to earn your way into with better rewards and better glory, basically better ways, better bragging rights. That's another one that I can do that. But this is the kind of stuff I wish I could say, and I know the magic silver bullet,
Right.
and it's exactly this. No, it's a hard problem. This is probably the most challenging problem that we have to deal with, and I don't know that other games have actually effectively dealt with it. I'm trying to learn from the other games where I can, but as you guys noodle on this, I know a lot of you certainly have the skills that you could be designers. If you want to noodle on it some and add to the forums, I will be. I can't respond to everyone, but I do read most of those things. So if there's a general question that I pose, like I'm posing right now, I will definitely log in and take a read. And if a good idea is there, I will happily nick it, because I've got no problem taking a good idea if I think it'll adjust some of these elements. So there you go. There's my design rant on overall team competitiveness and what a hard challenge it is to solve in a war simulator.
Thank you for the valuable insight.
Yeah.
So we're about out of time. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
I don't think that's a lot. Oh, I will say that the article that I was talking about was on 10 Ton Hammer. I assume it's posted now.
About to go live.
Or it's about to go live. So if you guys want to jump over there, I talk about these systems about the same level of coverage we did here, but maybe I forgot something that I didn't forget in the interview. So you guys feel free to go and take a look at that and let us know your thoughts on the forums. This is a big one. It's exciting.
Yeah, we have a lot of work ahead of
We
us.
do. We do. It's daunting, but it's also really it's exciting, because this is the time when we pull the real game together, right? These are the final pieces that we need, so to make us really unique and different. So anything else?
Oh yeah, 5.1.10 will also contain Frostweaver.
Oh yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the many things.
That's
that I
one of
said
the-
there's
that's
a
one of
whole
the
bunch
bullet
other
points.
Stuff.
Yeah, they were saying Frostweaver, but to me, it's like
No, it's
like Freebird. I just don't even hear it.
Everything is kind of dwarfed by the
the big ticket items, but yeah,
because that's really the
those
game.
pieces need to come in for sure, and at that point we'll have hit all those check boxes. Now we got a bunch of other ones we still have to get to, right? In terms of assets and stuff like that. I didn't talk about those because that's just a thing that we need to do. Anything else?
I saw someone asking if you're going to do anything fun around Halloween. I didn't know. Have something fun.
We do have something fun planned, but I don't want to tip my hand yet.
Okay,
That's all.
we'll keep. Yeah, there you
Just
go.
let
So
them know.
keep your eyes out for that. And we'll talk about that again
Yeah,
soon.
it won't be Monster Month. I'm sorry for the pain of Monster Month last year.
I don't even
I don't
remember
know
Monster
that
Month.
was.
Ditto.
Remember they sent in videos, judged videos.
No, I don't.
We had
It's a
the
blur. I'm sorry,
Haitian
Debbie Sue.
twerk video.
Oh no, I do recall that. That seared into my mind. I will not
Yeah,
forget that. Yeah.
It was born of a problem where everybody was so busy, and coming up with content like took time away from the real work on the game. And I apologize if you didn't like it, but I don't apologize for doing it because it was a necessity. I gotta protect my team. I serve 2 masters here. I serve the community and I serve my team. And sometimes their needs conflict, and I've got to make sure I protect the people that are responsible for my rent.
So Monster Month Part 2 is what I'm hearing. Electric Boogaloo.
And the article.
Okay,
You
the
know, I
article's
may
up
do
now.
it now just out of spite.
Spite is a good reason for anything.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so the article is up. 10 Ton Hammer, please go check that out, and we will look forward to hearing your thoughts on the forums as always. Thank you guys for tuning in. And
We'll stop banging the table. We'll put
see
this
you
thing
guys.
on a little platform next time.
Yeah,
So that way
a tiny
it
little
absorbs it.
pillow. So, all right, thank you very much, guys. We'll see you again soon. Bye bye.
Bye.